That alert is always so aggressive.
Yes.
I guess something's going to explode. Cool. So I think we had a couple signed up, but then someone just had a last minute work meeting, so they've had to drop out. But we'll kind of just kick on. Yeah. So basically today, this is just a general Q&A series, like a Microgreen 101, focusing on just growing microgreens. So sort of something that most people should be fairly well established with at this stage, but it's also for new people coming into the ecosystem. But if you are a little bit more experienced, we can sort of skip over some of the basic stuff. Yeah, so how long have you been growing, Marissa?
So I was part of the first cohort, yeah, since then.
Yeah, this is original resilience growing back in last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Alrighty. So yeah, I mean, these are just the basic slides. You would have seen all of this. So really what we're trying to get across with microgreens at this early stage of growth. So generally the first 2 weeks, and they're really highly nutrient dense and really nutritious, because all that energy that is there to make the plant grow into a full plant, like a broccoli or a radish, is already in the seed at the time of germination. So all of that growth is concentrated at those first couple of weeks of growing. Yeah, so what we're really trying to show is you can have a small amount of microgreens and give a really large nutritional boost to your diet. It's not something that's meant to replace vegetables entirely, but it's a really good way to add sort of nutrition to your meals really simply. And also because they grow very quickly, 2 weeks, you can have a really regular fresh supply of them growing as well. So that's sort of what that slide sort of with microgreens is talking about. Something that might be new, because in resilience growing, we largely focused on just growing in hemp, and we're sort of branched out a little bit now. So there's kind of 3 main mediums that we grow in now. So hemp, sort of the original and the best. So we use that because it holds a lot of water, and it doesn't release any sort of additives or toxins or anything into the water when it does become wet. It was also a waste product from the hemp industry. So the industry that manufactures textiles and fibers, this was sort of the leftover fibers that they couldn't use. So that was good with diverting that from landfill, so it's nice and sustainable. Some of the downsides to hemp, though, are a little bit more prep involved. You've got to cut it to size, you've got to pre-soak it, you've got to stretch it out. You've also got to dispose of it as well, which can sort of be an issue if you are growing large volumes. And also you've got to ship it around the place as well. So hemp, we're still using hemp definitely, especially in aquaponics. And in aquaponics is still really, really key, because you can't have any soil going into the aquaponic system. So hemp's still really good, but we have branched out and found a lot of success with a couple of other mediums. So the coir, generally coconut coir is what we use, and that's kind of the predominant sort of coir that's out on the market. It's literally just coconut husk, the shells from coconut that again would just go to landfill. And so that husk is sort of pulled off and turned into this sort of fibrous medium that sort of feels almost really rough, like dog hair or something like that. Again, it's really good because it doesn't get compacted too well. It holds a lot of water, and it sort of it doesn't break down quickly as well in water, which is not something you want with a growing medium. You need it to last for the length of the plant. And the newest medium we're using now is clay balls, and we're finding they've been really, really successful in terms of they're easy to use. You can just scatter the seeds on top of the clay balls and give them a spray with some water to kick off germination, and that's it. They're totally reusable, so you're not discarding the clay balls after every time you've harvested a tray of microgreens. You just sort of pull out the dead roots, and those clay balls are good to go again. The only downside is they don't have great water retention, because they're not like a sponge, they're clay, so they will hold little bits of water in the air pockets inside. But the key to using clay balls as a growing medium is you've got to keep the irrigation up really regular, and keep it, make sure it's at the right level. So the clay balls almost wick the water up from the bottom. So you just got to be careful to make sure whatever system you're using, that you're keeping the bottom of those trays well irrigated, so the moisture continues to wick up into the plants. Aquaponics, you would know about this as well. So this is really just a breakdown of the aquaponics kind of life cycle. Pretty simple. Again, we've gone over it in resilience growing a lot. So the fish waste generates lots of nitrates. Those nitrates, or lots of ammonia, those ammonias are turned into nitrate from the beneficial bacteria. in the tank, and then that beneficial bacteria goes to the plants, and they can absorb nutrients through that process. The plants also filter the water for us, and then the water goes back into the system, and the fish swim around in it again and keep sort of excreting their waste. Really great system. It's kind of like very modern, but also kind of old-fashioned in a way, like how aquaponics has been around for a long time, and we're just adapting it to like a modern context in these sort of smaller systems. There's zero waste, there's no chemicals needed, you don't need to add fertilizers. The only thing you're really adding is a little bit of fish food and water top-ups from just natural evaporation, but you don't not like losing heaps and heaps of water like you would with sort of open scale irrigation on like a market garden or big sort of broad acre crops and those kind of growing methods. And also quite disease and pest resistant as well, because the growth is so quick that generally the plants have sort of, they're at harvest level before they have time to develop sort of any disease or attract any pests. And then you start again and the pests aren't interested. So yeah, it's a kind of really good system in that regards. And this is just, yeah, it's kind of the new system we're using. So this is your acrylic tank top that goes over your existing Farm Oil Microgreen system. They're just clay balls, and some of these looks like also Koya hemp cubes as well. We've got a mix with these little terracotta pots. They're terracotta clay, so they wick water up really well. So in the bottom of that tank, just the bottom sort of inch or so of those pots will be underwater, and so they'll almost work like a candle. They'll wick it up, and that will keep the contents of the terracotta pot nice and moist. We've tried this with both coconut Koya, with hemp cubes, and also with clay balls as well. And we found it's worked well for all of those varieties. So it's been a really successful sort of new kind of growing medium for us. Really like it. It looks really good. It's really neat. You don't have to worry about pulling out old sort of soggy hemp sheets and putting new ones down. You just harvest your greens as you need. Once that's finished, pull the rest of the roots out and then sprinkle some more seeds in and away you go. So we're really excited about this one, and we're finding the customers are really enjoying it. Marissa, have you seen this acrylic tank top at all, or have you been interested in maybe purchasing one? Do we have any audio? I'm not sure.
Sorry. Thanks, Luke. Yes, I am interested because I'm finding that the hemp is in Sydney warm weather. I seem to get a lot of fruit flies. I've had to put something on top.
Okay, and is that during like while you're waiting for them to germinate, or once they've already sort of sprouted?
No, just currently winter it's fine, but as soon as it starts to warm up, the fruit flies seem to love this. Any sort of moisture, they just love. So any tiny bit of moisture, they love. But I think this will be much better because there's less surface area, or less moist surface area.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point. Like being in Sydney too, I'm the same. I sometimes do sort of pickling or kombucha in my kitchen sort of bench top area, and it's always attracts fruit flies like crazy as soon as it sort of hits springtime. So, and growing microgreens in Sydney, sort of more looking back towards 2019 into 2020's summer. Yeah, we had a lot of issues with sort of gnats and fruit flies as well. The humidity is a really big problem, and they love sort of hiding in those little damp, moist, kind of darkened areas, which you do get when you've got the trays covered as well. So yeah, this is something we are recommending for a lot of people who might have issues with fruit flies. Yeah, you can order the tank top from the website. It fits under the tank nicely. Right. We've made a little cutout in it for all the cables to go through. I wonder if I can annotate that.
Yeah, and hope you don't mind me jumping in. There's also there's a video available on the Ecosystem Network, which shows you how to use it, which we filmed for users who have been using hemp sheets for a while and have decided to buy the tank lid. So just basically just shows what it is, how to make sure your cables are in line, and then how to seed your microgreens using those pots if you haven't done it yet already. And in terms of the flies, I'm down in Melbourne, and we don't have fruit flies, but we have big issues like anyone who's growing indoors with fungal gnats. And I found the exact same thing, that the hemp tray, it produces a huge amount of microgreens, but it's perfect breeding ground for them. Whereas with the clay balls, it makes a really big difference. Even I tried growing in clay balls, but in the trays for a while, and they still had a fair bit of surface area to breed, and yeah, they did pretty well there. And the combination of using the acrylic tank lid for the past 6 months and clay balls, and also because it's been winter, I've had no issues at all.
Right.
And I have a few other things to do next summer if they do come back with a vengeance, and that's, you know, sticky traps, and I have a couple of carnivorous plants and things like that. So yeah.
Cool.
We've tried the sticky traps. We have tried the alcohol trap, all sorts of traps, but our household must be just particularly lovely for them. My kids think I'm ridiculous. I took to vacuuming them up.
That's not ridiculous. I've done that many a time. I have a handheld Dyson, and it's actually fairly effective. If you sneak up on them quietly enough, you can generally get a little bunch before they'll fly away.
It's a bit sad.
Yeah, but their fault. They shouldn't be there. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a Sydney. Like, if you're anywhere in urban Sydney, by the coast, even sort of the inner city, like inner west and inner south, like it's just there's so much humidity and lack of airflow. I did find, like, we, you know, sort of bigger growing spaces where we're growing like hundreds of trays at a time, having fans on did help. So just that constant air movement around the trays that tended to deter the sort of fruit flies from hanging about. But obviously not in a home setting. You don't want to be running big industrial fans over your tank, but even just a little fan, potentially just one of those little handheld ones or battery operated ones, you could pop that next to the tank, and that might disturb the air enough to kind of just make them go find somewhere else instead.
Yes, they can't land. I've learned this.
Yeah,
so
you know, the little things like that.
Yeah.
No, I'll go to the acrylic top. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
And the just to jump in again, the sticky traps I've learned, they seem to do a good job instantaneously because you catch a lot of the adults on them, but that's the thing, you're only catching the adult stage, so it's likely those adults have still had a chance to breed and lay their eggs somewhere. So they can make a difference for a few days or a week, but then, you know, the next round of babies hatch, and that's where using the clay balls and having the acrylic lid is a really good solution, because it prevents that egg stage and baby stage altogether. The other way to deal with that is by using hydrogen peroxide and BT spray. In the case of industrial applications, the BT spray actually eliminates the fungus that they feed on, so it creates a really unattractive environment for them, which unfortunately we can't do in a home setting. But yeah, if you can, it's the same with indoor plants. I find they really love a lot of different soils, especially if the soils stay moist. But if you can figure out a way to stop that baby stage, so a good way is to use soil that prevents fungus gnats, which there's a few you can find in nurseries and stuff like that. Or if you can make that surface really inhospitable, like covering it with rocks or with pebbles, which never stay moist and which is really hard to crawl into and lay eggs under them. And that's another really good way to deal with it.
Thank you.
In the case of fungus gnats, that is. Fruit flies, I'm not so sure. We're a privileged bunch down here in Melbourne that we don't have to deal with them.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I have some microgreens that I've grown in the pots with the acrylic lid for show and tell, which I can show now on the camera. I sowed all these microgreens on what day are we on today? It would have been Saturday. So it's been 4 or 5 days now. I let them germinate for 2 days in darkness and then took the covers off. I've sown 3 of these pots, which are radish microgreens, and as you can see, they've done pretty well. They're probably a day away from the length I like when I eat them. And yeah, I've got 3 of those. They've done pretty well, and they do best, in my experience, in the clay balls. There's a couple of microgreens that don't do as well, which I think mainly comes down to seed size. And a good example of that is sunflowers, which I did last week as well. I've had some success with them, but as you can see, they haven't germinated, as densely as I would like, even though I put a fair few seeds in. There's actually a lot of seeds which have failed to germinate there. It could be because I uncovered them too soon, so they weren't in the moisture and the darkness for long enough. But I think the other issue is it's a little bit too small of an area for so many sunflower seeds to germinate and grow, because they're a fairly chunky microgreen. I've also got some broccoli, which is a classic. They pretty much go well anywhere. Those ones are pretty, again, sparsely germinated, but I know that's my fault. When I seeded these, I only had a little bit of broccoli left. So I tried to stretch it across two pots, and I probably should have just gone into one. And they're probably maybe 2 or 3 days away from where I would like them to be to eat them. And then I've got some cabbage as well. These ones germinate a little bit later than the ones that I've shown you already. So you can only see the babies there. And there's actually quite a few which are hiding deep below the first layer of clay balls. They'll pop up in the next few days. So they're probably about a week away, maybe a bit more. But yeah, that's just some that I had growing now, which I thought might be handy to bring along and show. Yeah, that's it.
Have you had success still, Marissa? Like, obviously you've had issues with fruit flies, but have you still been able to grow good crops?
No, I took a break over winter.
Yeah,
so I took my little little plants and put them on the windowsill. So I've got the windowsill garden happened over winter, basically. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So now I'm ready to get back into the microgreens because of that nutrition value.
Of course, yes. And we got plenty of time up our sleeves still for the next couple of months, at least. So yeah. And like I found just getting back into the garden the last couple of weeks has really helped with that. Just that sort of takes your mind off things for a little while instead of watching the press conference every day. And just, so yeah, like that. I think that's something we sort of don't focus on enough, is the wellness and the mental health aspect of growing your own food and just having green things in your space.
Yes.
I've really enjoyed just taking, a nice sunny day and taking the houseplants outside and giving them a haircut and, changing their soil and things like that. Yeah, it's a nice way to kind of pass the time and gets you away from the screen as well, which is always good.
Yes.
Do you have any other sort of questions in terms of moving forward with the product top? Or?
No, I just want to see the new system, so that's great.
I've
got that in my mind now.
Yeah, we've got them in stock down in Melbourne, so I think you guys are still going in to ship out orders every now and then.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's good. Sorry, Melbourne, for putting you back in lockdown.
Yeah, save it. Look,
yeah.
It is what it is. Just got to be a bit stoic about it and try and move on, I think.
Yeah.
Get on with things. But yeah, we are still able to go into work to ship orders and also to do any of our agricultural work in terms of growing things indoors. So there's at the moment no delay on any orders or any stock coming through.
Good. One other thing, Marissa, is we also have an indoor plant food, a new product that we've launched as well. It's on the online store now. It's derived from sort of food waste that was being processed by insects, and we call it like a bioactivated. It's basically really it's got a lot of like active sort of enzymes and biological components in it that will help rejuvenate the soil for your indoor plants. So if you do have indoor plants or outdoor plants, the big thing with using town water, your tap water, it's got chlorine in it, and the chlorine kills the good bacteria in the soil when you water the plants, and it takes a few weeks for that to come back, and then you water them again and you kill it again. So obviously we would definitely recommend trying to use rainwater if you can catch it on a rainy day, or alternatively you can dechlorinate your water by just boiling it in a jug and putting it in a big bowl and let it evaporate overnight. That can be a little tedious. But the indoor plant food basically restores that that biological component to the soil, so it promotes really healthy like microorganism growth. And from there, you get lots of really interesting bacteria, and then the plants can feed off that bacteria and get a lot of nutrients from the soil that way. Yeah, so that's called farm or indoor plant food. It's on the page. You get a little spray bottle, you can put it straight into the soil, and yeah, we found like wonders. I think, Pat, you've been using it at home on some stuff, and yeah, your ones are going great.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, if you have any more questions.
No, that's it for me.
That's cool. Well, you're the only one, so private
thank you. I'm back up to speed now, so that's great.
Yeah, awesome. No, I'm glad we could jump on and help you out there. And I guess we'll see you in more Q&As during the week.
Thank you.
The coming weeks. Great. Thanks, Marissa.
Thanks, Marissa.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.